Hello. Hello, Angry Music. I'll come back to you in a little bit. Hello. My name's Chris Quinlan. Welcome to Melbourne Musos Face Chook Live at 5. A little bit earlier today because I have to go somewhere. Look, I've dressed up all snazzy like. Oh, there you go. So what I'm going to do, I'll get straight to the point. Last week, I got some patches on too. I might just turn it down. I won't turn them off. Just turn them down. What I did last week is... did I introduce yourself? I'll do it again. My name's Chris Quinlan. Welcome to Melbourne Musos Face Chook Live at 5. A little bit different. Oh, I'm forgetting things in my old age. So what it is last week I was talking about things like the Alexander technique and stuff, where you can breathe and keep your flow and all that. And one of the things that I talked about was resolution points, you see. And what goes on with that is that when we're starting to play some more advanced stuff and we start to get into polyrhythms and things like this, what starts to happen is we start to play numbers off of each other. Last week, and I'm going to talk about it a bit more because I like my continuity, what it is 4 against 3. And when you're doing that, like... things like that, you see. Now what happens with this, let's start talking about how to get some of these different kinds of figures happening. Now one of the main plank of polyrhythm is the art of playing two rhythms against each other. Okay. Now what goes on is that in the most basic of polyrhythms, both rhythms are even, meaning, you know, they're both even, right? This obviously changes. But what starts to happen with this is that you think of it like, you know, like the Olympic Games, and you've got the athletics, and you've got some, you know, you're doing the 1,500 meters, and you're going around and doing laps. Now, if you've got, you know, it can also be cars if you want. So we've got the Grand Prix. When I was coming up, I used to call it the Grand Prix. Everyone had laughed. They never corrected me. Maybe they were right. But with that, and you're doing laps, you're doing the circle work, mate. The circle work. What's going on is that you could have a car or a runner doing 1 kilometre more than the other car or runner, you see. So if someone's doing, say, 60 k's down the road and someone else is doing 62, but you're doing laps, what happens is eventually they get lapped, you see. So it's like a clock. There's actually a polyrhythmic metronome out there that is exactly that. It's a clock. It's put out by Frozen Ape. Gratuitous plug. Don't get paid for that, but out of love. And it's the Polyrhythmic Metronome. It's the next one up from the Tempo, which is my favourite app, metronome app on my phone. But what it is when you're dealing with this, the most used thing is the common denominator method. So if you've got 4 against 3, you multiply the two numbers together, so you get 12. 4 times 3 is 12. And then what happens is to get the 3, you would play every 4. So it'd be 1 iana, 2 iana, 3 iana. Or if you like, well, I'll leave it there. Semiquavers. 1 iana, 2 iana, 3 iana. 1 iana, 2 iana, 3 iana. When you're dealing with the 4, you're actually playing 1 every 3 beats. So you're playing off, the numbers are playing off of each other. So you get 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, 4 under, 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, 4 under, you see. When you put them together, you start to work different things. A great one for the 4 against 3 is you start saying things, okay? And the one that I like is, see the big fat piggy, C, the big fat biggie, C, the big fat biggie. I've done that before. C, the big fat biggie, C, the big fat biggie, C, the big fat biggie, C, the big fat biggies. You see, there you go. You've got 4 against 3. Now, what starts to happen though is that you can only go so far with this. You can do it with anything. You can do any 2 numbers at all. So when you start to deal with the Frank Zappa business and everything else business, you know, you're starting to get pretty out there, you know, things like a 15 against 5 and all this sort of, well, not really, a 15 against 4 or something like that, and it starts to do your head in, you know. 15 against 4, I mean, you know, who's going to count to 60? I gave up 2 years ago. I'm going backwards. I'm going to check out when I'm 10. Level with my maturity. But what goes on is that what happens is that at some point you've got to think of something different to get there, right? And this is where resolution points is. And this is where the Molar Technique comes in. And what starts to happen if you're doing 3, so you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's your resolution point. Bring it back to there. And then 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 3's in. Oh! I'll cut that out later. That's what you got. There you go. Live. There it is. And so what it goes on is that there's a resolution point there, you see. And that's 4 against 3. Now, I'm going to add something to this. I've done all, so far in previous episodes, I have, you know, talked about polyrhythms before and talked about Frank Zappa before and talked about all sorts of things before. And but what I want to do is get a yet another angle for you so you can get to it fairly quickly. Now, what starts to happen when you're dealing with these kinds of polyrhythmic ideas, you've got to remember that there's 2 types of poly, okay? You've got a polyrhythm, which is 2 beats played against each other. I'm using the 4 against 3. But you also have a polymeter, and that's 2 time signatures against each other. Okay, so what happens then is that you could be playing. I'll do the 4 against 3 again. Now, there's the 3. I'll treat them as triplets. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. What I did then was a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you see? But that's the triplet hand. Now, if I do this. There's your semiquavers, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And there your 4 and 3, mate. Now the 5. Oh, ho, ho. And then what goes on then is you've got 3 things happening, okay? With 2 hands, you see. So what happens is you've got the polymeter where you're playing 5/8, okay, against the triplets, okay. There you go there, in triplet time. And here you've got semiquavers. Now, what starts to happen before you sort of do the old, I will never need that and all that. I was saying to one of my students who was up to the level of doing all this business, is that it's a really funny thing if you're playing jazz, 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 1 to 2 to 3, and you've got a saxophone player who decides to go up the scale. Okay, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C octave is on the 2nd beat or something like that. There's 7 notes to a major scale. So what's happening is because the jazz you might be doing, you're basing it on triplets. It could change depending on your tempo. I've done a show on that as well. But what goes on is if you're basing it on triplets and your saxophone player goes, the nice little roll, the scale roll right up, he's playing 7 notes in the time of 3. So it's a 7 against 3 polyrhythm, and no one even knows it. It's just, up the scale. It's fascinating, isn't it? I find it fascinating. But then I don't have a life. And that's what goes on. That's why I'm going out tonight. What goes on is that with that, if you're going to do a pentatonic scale, okay, so penta, 5, okay, so it'll be 5 against 3. Do you see? So polyrhythms are everywhere, down to the cars doing laps, with the Grand Prix. And what happens then is that you might have the Olympics, and they're going around, and the poor slow guy is getting lapped by everybody else. That's a polyrhythm in and of itself, even if you do the timing. Stopwatch, away you go. That's what goes on. Now, I'm almost tempted to call this show In Plain Sight, because what I'm talking about is fairly advanced concepts, okay? And so far I've talked about the resolution point and the common denominator method. I've talked about polyrhythms and polymetres, and I'm not even a quarter of an hour into the show, so I'm packing a lot in. But what happens is that it's all around you. It's wherever you go, okay? If you're driving somewhere tonight and you're doing you're doing 60 Ks and you keep it on 60 Ks and the dude next to you is doing 62, watch what happens. Now, if it's a big circle, at some point you're going to meet again. That's what goes on. So it's natural. It's a natural thing. People have it with their voice, the speed of voice, that kind of thing. That might be a slow drawl, and here we go. And then it might be 6 cups of coffee, mate. Let's go. We're running late. No, all that sort of stuff. But what goes on is when you're starting to deal with this sort of business in plain sight. I'm going to talk about John Henry Bonham now a little bit. A couple of months ago I was having fun. Whatever is said about you eventually gets back to you, good and bad and in between. And I found out that, I don't know, I'm the hi-hat guy. I don't know why. I do a little bit more than just, going, I suppose. I splash it, I do things. I got the hi-hat jingles. And so on it goes, and I do different things, different colours. The hi-hat. And what goes on is that I'm going to quickly go to sticks now. And what I'm going to do is take the patches off for a second. And what I'm going to do here is sort of talk about a bit of a stylistic thing with Mr. Bonham. Okay. Now, a lot of us know, lots about, Led Zeppelin seems to be bobbing up a lot. There's tribute bands galore all trying to do the same thing and all that sort of stuff. And but what goes on is, think about the time. I often call myself a child of my time. Dun, dun, dun. Deep Purple, 1970. Deep Purple in rock. Sweet child in time. Sorry. I'm doing this sober. So what's going on is that in the day, you've got to remember that the hi-hat ruled with 2s and 4s. And then Bonham came up with good times, bad times. You hear it there all the time. So, and you've got to remember, at some point, the Paiste cymbal company started making him a 24-inch ride cymbal, the 2002 series that was specially made for him. He was using giant beats and a little bit of Formula 602 before, which I have a set of over there and I dearly love. But what goes on is that when Led Zeppelin basically took off like this. Whoop, first album, Hello, took over from the Beatles, essentially, and it was between Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones throughout the 70s, who was the biggest band. They kept breaking each other's attendance records. What would happen is that by the time they were playing to you know, huge stadiums and things like this, you've got to remember that a big-ass 24-inch ride cymbal, when you're playing a rock beat, that's the closest I can come to it. This beautiful Meinl 22-inch crushed ride is a Benny Greb series. Wonderful cymbal, 3 rivets. I love it very much. Hello. And what goes on with that is that you can't hear the ping. It's just like that. So for definition, you know, Jimmy Page might be coming, Bonzo, I can't hear the one, you know. No worries, Jim. It's almost like a dual ride. So you go. So remember, that's probably why he's got the jingle. Now can you hear me, Big Jim? There it is, pumping away there. So there's that. So it comes from a natural point of view, you know. Sometimes some of the trickiest things comes from just a simple request, you know, like, you know, can you play the hi-hat? We just need a bit more definition. Yep. Ooh, I can't do it. I'll be back. I have to practice. And away you go. You add your bits and pieces, you see. So that's what sort of starts to go on. Sometimes some things are quite, you know, comes from very simple requests, and the requester doesn't quite realise that it might be a hell of a lot of coordinational work, the coordinational nightmare for the requestee, if you know what I'm talking about, even if that's a word. So I'm going to go back to my mallets, and I'm going to put the patches back on, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that. Now, the typical John Bonham thing, he's very famous for his 16th note triplets on his 26-inch bass drum. But you've got to remember that with things like Good Times, Bad Times and all sorts of stuff like that, he was also playing the hi-hat with it as well. So essentially it's a triplet, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right. Now the reason I'm doing mallets and I'm putting this in tonight, because I'm going to take it somewhere else now. Okay. Does anyone remember the Afro-Celt sound system in the 90s? I love that band. It was a mixture of exactly what it is. African rhythms and African sounds mixed in with the Celtic sounds. Oh, it was great. I think they put out 2 or 3 albums, as I remember. And I used to listen to them a lot. And they were very big with Womadelaide and doing the circuit with world music in general. Just wonderful stuff. And go check them out. But I still have memories. I had them on cassette. And then, of course, the day of the cassette, you know, you put it in, it's just like, just disintegrated. But what happens is, that's the patch side of things. But if I'm going to do the John Bonham and have the hi-hat playing on the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I put in the 16th note bass drum that he's been so, you know, so famous for. Then you've got coordination. Now, what I can do is use the hi-hat as the resolution point. So, right, left. Triplets with the feet. There it is there. Paradiddle. That's another way of getting to a 4 against 3, you see, because I've got 3 with the feet. And with the paradiddle, go on. See what I was doing there with the hi-hat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, pardon me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5 against 3 happening in various different kinds of ways. And then what starts to happen with that is that at the end of the day, you're actually getting things, weird and wonderful things that is used by many different people. I'm going from Led Zeppelin, that kind of thing, but your Frank Zappas, your King Crimsons, and Dream Theater, and everyone else. Tool is big on polyrhythmic playing and polymetric when you're listening to them play. There's wonderful stuff. And what starts to go on with this is it comes from simple things. And like I said before, you could be playing a jazz rhythm that, for all intents and purposes for this explanation, is based on triplets. So you've got 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. And if you've got a gung-ho sax player going from the root note of a scale and go up to the octave, well, it's a 7-note scale, and you come back on the octave on the second beat, like I said. Therefore, by default, it's a 7 against 3 polyrhythm, and you'd hear that every night in any jazz club. And if they're doing pentatonics, which is a 5-note scale, they're doing quintuplets, so it'll be 5 against 3. There you go. And then what happens then is you take these groupings, and then you have your resolution point, even if you're just doing hands. So I've been going right, left, So hippopotamus, there's a 5. So there's 5. There it is, splash it in, imply, that kind of stuff. See, if you do that, just that's wonderful. That's no worries at all. But that's not giving you any kind of relationship to the time signature until you put something in with everything else. However, if you do, that will imply 3. Here's 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Very angry, very angry, very angry. Now that is a polymeter. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Cut time. But continue 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Boom. There you go, you see. So there's that. Now I better start wrapping the show up. Now, but I will do one other thing that's actually not on my script. But what goes on is if you're doing paradiddles, usually when you're playing them, you're counting, well, the most common one, semiquavers. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. But how do you get to the bigger numbers? When you're doing 4 against 3s and all this sort of business, start to do 12s and also, what's going on here? What starts to happen, you adjust your count. So if I'm going to do triplets, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1. I'm playing dozen uplets, that's what I call them, because the thing is, if you're doing triplets, 3 inside of one beat, and then you paramodulize them, you're playing 4 to every count. Now, the normal term that I first learned from Frank Zappa and the blank page, not blank, black. The black page is nested polyrhythms. Polyrhythms inside another polyrhythm. And what starts to happen there is that here, I'm actually playing 4 notes to every triplet count. So 4 on the 1, 4 on the and 4 on the which gives you 12 notes. So if you've got, say, a 3 against 2 polyrhythm, and I'm busy going, that would therefore become 12 against 2. That's what goes on, you see. Now, I'm hoping I'm unlocking the door to this, okay, so that you can get a lot of things. And always remember, sometimes these polyrhythms come from the simplest of requests and the simplest of places. Like I said, the one that I'll keep coming back to for the simplest of things, you might even hear it tonight, when you go out to see a band, and what goes on is that you might be hearing a jazz rhythm, and then the soloist flies up the scale. And if it's a major scale, it's 7 notes. A minor scale, it's a 7 note. So they're playing 7 against 3 without even knowing it. Bang. Fixed. There it is. All right. Now, when you're starting to do these kinds of things, one of the things that happens in classical music is Sprechensong, or whatever it is. I think that's the way to say it. But Arnold Schoenberg with his 12-tone rose and Piero Lunaire, these wonderful pieces. And you'd have spoken word, and then what would happen is that you would play with it. There's quite the genre, you know, when you have the politician with his hand in the till and he gets caught out and he has to do the grovelling public apology or anything like that, and he's all crying and there's people out there that Mono Neon is the bass player who does it, and he'll go and all that sort of stuff, and it's wonderful, it's beautiful. And Frank Zappa did it with Steve Vai. The dangerous kitchen, if it ain't one thing, it's another. In the middle of the night when you come home, it's all dried and scratchy. Well, Lisa Kelly and I used to do things like that. We used to call our band Two Pluked Out. And that's what would go on. And then you'd have different things like that. Now that goes straight back to 20th century classical music with the aforementioned Schoenberg. So what sometimes I love to do, as you know, that with my sampler, I'll use a voice as a metronome. Okay, so get on the beers, and all that. You've seen me do all that sort of stuff. And I've got one here for you. And I've got it just here on the phone. I'll get started. And I'm going to put on, the other week I mentioned some of the apps on my iPhone apps. This one is Trope. And here it is here, coming up, I hope. There it is. And there you have it. Yeah, very dark. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off. The patch that I have on my drums is a Shakuhachi Flute. Nothing quite like the real thing, I know, but still. And the mode that I'm using is a Dorian mode, which is the second step of a major scale. First, second, flat 3, 4, 5, just a straight 6, flat 7, an octave. It's almost like a light minor. Hope you enjoyed the show. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up some spoken word. A bit topical.
disability pension. I worked in the mines for 30 years, right? When I retire, I expect to get a pension. It's not a pension made up with the disabilities, right? I've got fruit certificates. You know when you work, you get fruit certificates, right? I've got 70,000. I've been fighting settlements for 12 years, right? You know what? A 1991 pension made up with the Dusty D's. Look, mate, in 1991 Social Security Act, that's what you're relying on. Let me talk. Okay, there's been 42 amendments since then, right? In 2003, the Dusty D Board made an agreement with the New South Wales government and the taxation department. Last time I checked, the taxation was federal, right? Saying that any compensation that I received from the Dusty D Board, which is now high care, which should be changed to don't care, right? That was treated as income. Well, look, mate, it's treated as income, right? Okay, a pensioner is allowed to earn a couple of $100 for a pension. Right, now I'm being treated, I've been fighting for 12 years, mate. 12 years. You treat a disability pensioner that's worked all his life, paid his taxes, now he's getting taxed again. This is what you said when you got on the last fight. We're going to help all those people that worked all their lives, paid their taxes, and those that have a go will get a go. So I've had a go, mate. I've worked as I have and paid my taxes. Look, mate. Yeah, okay, mate. Yeah, okay. I've been 12 years fighting for this. Alright, well you were the social service minister. Hey, you've been social service minister, you've also been immigration minister. I've got a partner that I've been for 6.5 years. I've got a right as an Australian to choose who my partner should be. Right? Alright, we've been to the tribunal twice. We've won on both occasions. That's 14 months ago. Why can't I have a partner? Look, mate, you ring up your office and you do nothing. They don't even return a call. Alright, well you look into these two men. I would like to know more about it. Alright, well who do I get in touch with? But you say, oh, very good, you can have who she likes as her partner. I have never travelled overseas. I do not do internet. I met someone that I've been here 6.5 years. I've been to the tribunal twice. Hey, and on your address. That's right, mate. And look, I'm allowed to earn so much before it makes me think it. You can have $1 million house. You can have 250,000. Like, listen to me for a change. Right, 250,000 in the bank. You can have negative years, franking credits, but a disability pensioner can't have any income. You know, for the last 5 years, mate, you know what I've been doing? Looking after people in my flat, doing 16, 18 hours a day, and without any help from the government, 100-year-old man and a veteran on the other side, right? You know what the government supplied? Nothing, right? And then when I went to the tribunal about my wages, they said, oh, you're getting a carer's payment. Oh, you work it out, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 5 years. What's that work out? That's how much money I've saved the government.
Sir, I'm happy to pass it.
Hey, when you ring your mouth up and you don't even return the call, I don't care about you. You didn't. Hey, I'm paying a death tax every week. When you went to the life collection service, well, I'm paying it because I've taken money. Yeah. All right. Now, who can I contact tomorrow? Hey, I'm doing this before the election, mate, because this is 2 promises that you made. You know another promise that you made? Hey, yeah, no, you know, you're going to have an integrity commission. Hey, I've been to welfare rights, everything. You got the foxes looking after the hen house. What? Yeah. Hey, you do something. I don't care. I'm sick of you.
Thank you for watching. My name's Quinlan. Melbourne Musos Facebook Live at 5 tonight. A little bit different. I'm off to go somewhere. And hope you enjoyed that last little piece. Very topical. Apparently his name is Ray. Thank you, Ray. Take care, one and all. And, oh, what have we got here? Oh. I'll have it up tomorrow. Hey. Take care, everyone. Look after yourselves. See ya. Hey.